So I want to thank everybody for coming tonight. For those who don't know who I am, my name is Patty Schramm. I'm the Parent Resource Trainer Coordinator for the SALT Talks. So this whole month, we're looking at post-high school decisions. And I don't know where many of you are in the transition piece, but there is so much to think about when you're coming to transition. So, like in high school, you have your IEPs, you're preparing for that graduation. And we had looked at that throughout September, getting that IEP in line, graduation, project life, project search. How do you write the IEP to prepare for this employment and post-secondary? We looked at all that in September, and then this month we were focusing on that decision of, okay, now we are very close to graduating. If not graduating, now what? So this week we're focusing on post-secondary education. What does a If you're considering college of your child, maybe can my child do it? I don't know if we can do it. There's so many different thoughts that go through your head. Um, how are we going to get them there? What will it be like when they stay? So last week we talked about transportation, and you can back in YouTube and you can see that that recording that we did last week. But this week, just looking at post-secondary, what does it look like for my child to live on campus? Or do we, commute? What are our choices and what does all that look like? So with that, tonight I brought in two different schools. So we have Sinclair Community College, and then we have Tristan with Sinclair Community, and then we have Kerri who is representing UC TAPS programs. They're going to talk about each of their programs, um, and how what parents can think about as you're looking at that, when to register, when to apply, what about open houses, all these things that go on when you're looking at programs and what to consider. So with that, I'm going to turn it over. Is there a preference which one wants to go first? Okay. Um, are
Kerri,
you
why
okay?
don't you start? Because sometimes I have a hard time with pacing myself, and I want to make sure you have plenty of time.
Okay, but that means you need to cut me off because I can talk for hours. Anyway,
I made you
um,
both co-hosts so you could share your screen. And I'll let you go ahead then, Kerri, and go ahead and start. Thank you.
okay, let me see here. Let me figure out how to share it. Let me know when I'm coming up on my time, please, or like 15 minutes out even.
Okay.
I got to hold. It's always the sharing thing.
And while she's pulling that up, if you have any questions throughout our presentation, feel free to put your questions in the chat box. I'll be watching it, and we'll try to bring those questions up as we go through, unless you guys would like all the questions at the end.
Okay, well, now my screen share is not working, so give me just
Yeah.
a second. Of course, I had it up and then
Yeah.
it wouldn't go.
So when you do your share and then you click on the screen, there's two little boxes. If you have a video or anything, there's two little boxes in the lower left corner that you'd have to click on for video.
Right, that's what I think I'm missing. So let's see here. Sorry.
It's okay.
There. And then when I choose my screen though, I chose that one.
And then it should be just share.
Yeah.
It's coming up.
I feel like it's pulling up. Okay. Before it was pulling up on my email. Okay.
Ah, there you go. I
And
can
you see
see
it
it.
then?
Yes.
Is that full? There. Does that work?
Yes, I can see it.
Okay, so I am Kerri Wolfer. I am the Campus Life Coordinator with the Transition and Access Pathways Program at UC, the University of Cincinnati. I am on my 9th year here. I am a licensed independent social worker. And as the Campus Life Coordinator, I assist students I teach them their independent living skills, their social skills, and help them become members of the campus community. So I'm really a part of that independent living and becoming community members at UC. And so before I'm going to use our open house presentation, I've modified it a bit, and then I'm going to kind of work in answers. So it's a little bit about us, but really try to apply it to what these programs are in general. programs like this have been around now, we're going on like 19 years. We're in our 12th year here at UC, and there's now over 300 programs, post-secondary programs in the United States, which is really, it's wonderful, because it gives more and more options for people to attend post-secondary programs. And the other cool part is that they're all kind of different, right? And so not everyone's going to fit every student, but there's usually something out there for your student. And so a resource that I did provide you, Patty. It was a QR code, but Think College is kind of like the overreaching support for all of this. If you go to Think College, I think it's .org, online, you can find, for instance, you're talking about IEPs. There is an IEP goal suggestions. If you have a goal for your student or your child to come to a program like ours, they have IEP goal suggestions. And they tell you the colleges and what's out there and kind of the setup. So it is a really great resource for families. And it's kind of what we push a lot of families to. While we want them to come to us, there's so much out there. We want to make sure it's an informed decision. So make sure that you check that part out. So a little bit about us here. We have our director is Katie Norland. She's been with us for 3 years. Like I said, I have my licensed independent social work degree or licensure. Lisa Claypool is an intervention specialist. She's our academic coordinator. Emily Johnson is a vocational coordinator. She's also a licensed intervention specialist. And then our graduate assistant is in the doctoral program here for OT. And so all the makeup of programs everywhere is going to look a little different. I really like the experience and the diversity of who we bring in for what we do, because it's kind of a collaborative interdisciplinary team where we can kind of work together to meet the students' needs. What I really like about TAP, and again, when you're searching for a program, these are questions that you're going to want to ask. So TAP is embedded in the UC IDD Education Center, which is in the School of Education here at UC, which is in the College of Education, Criminal Justice, and Human Services, which is in the University of Cincinnati. So we're not like a side program. We are embedded in the college here. And what that affords us is, from the get-go, 12 years ago, there was buy-in from the top down, which is important because it means that the university, the top officials at the university are supportive of what we do. And it means that they're responsive to the changes that we need to make or ideas that we have. Not all programs are embedded in college programs. We have our mission and vision, but I wanted to highlight our core values. So every meeting, when we're meeting with other staff or with students, our core values are: we inspire positive change, we promote self-determination and self-advocacy, we build relationships of trust, we are dedicated to research and evidence-based practice, and we see and value each other's humanity. So we are a post-secondary program, and students come here to learn, and there's stuff that they learn in class, and there's stuff that they learn by going to college. And all of that is really, really important, which we'll get into in a little bit, because it's kind of the whole experience when you go to a post-secondary program. And again, a little bit more about us is we are part of the IDD Education Center, and you'll see we're a 4-year college certificate program with inclusive housing, but it's no longer required, though most people choose to live on campus. So I think we only have one person not living on campus right now out of 35 students we have. And that it's an expensive option, and a lot of families and students find the value of, we call it the living learning lab. A lot of learning and growth happens living in the dorms, where we help guide that and we bring it back to curriculum. And so a lot of teaching happens there. And in our program, we develop career skills, academic achievement, personal responsibility, and social networks. But the center also has 3 other programs. We have Impact Innovation, which is a year-round day program for adults with significant autism or other communication needs. There's transportation to and from campus, and there's lifelong learning, health and wellness, and vocational exploration. And that program is right here in Teachers College at UC, down on the 5th floor. And so it's an option for students who might not be able to do post-secondary education, but there's classes, there's programming, there's internship practice. The downside of Impact is there's a waiting list. It's a very, very popular program, and we're working very hard to get more spaces, but there is a waiting list to attend. Unlike our program, we are like a typical college process. So you apply each year, we have our application time period, and you have to come in for an interview, and we select our candidates each year. So there's not a wait list, but it is competitive. And then we have, it's called CECH, Collaboration for Employment and Education Synergy. And so this is a high school transition program for students aged 14 to 21. This is for students in those local school districts to the University of Cincinnati. It supports development of self-determination, vocational and social communication skills. And so if there was a question on like, how can you prepare for a program like ours? This would be one of those ways if you're in the greater Cincinnati area. I'm not certain where everybody's from, or to find other colleges that have a high school dual program, because the students who come from CECE, we have, you know, a certain percentage. It's not a large one, but when they do come, they're very comfortable on campus, right? They've already been on campus practicing things in the building where we are. Also, CECE offers a summer camp. So a summer option. So it's I don't know the exact time frame. I think it's like 6 weeks. But again, that would be an option for ways to prepare for a program like ours. And around the country, there are sleepover like summer workshops at other schools for high school students who are pondering post-secondary programs. And then we have the Regional Autism Advisory Council, which we just took over. So it's a regional network of experts across multiple disciplines. It's opportunities for networking, collaborative task force, and providing training and education. So to get into it, at a glance, we've had 49 graduates since this, as of spring 2024, 87% are employed or continuing their education, and 57% are living independently. That number will go up. There's always like a 6-month period after our most recent graduates to where they kind of get acclimated to their job and kind of get settled, and then, you know, move out into their independent living. 35 current students as of fall 2024, 63% are from Ohio, 46% from the Cincinnati area, and 37% are from out of state. We have a gentleman who has to get on a plane back and forth to the East Coast. And our program outcomes are to achieve sustained independence in the areas of employment, community connections, independent living, social relationships, lifelong learning, self-determination, and executive functioning. So our program philosophy, and I would say, so this is our philosophy, and I would say it's the philosophy of most programs like ours. And so what's unique about what we do is we have a regional network of schools that participates. It's GLPC. And so we're all trying to better each other, and we all are like working towards the same goal. And nationally, we're doing that. So I would say this is pretty much the philosophy of most programs, to provide person-centered support in achieving goals. So students are at the center of their academic and social planning, as well as setting their goals. Students' self-determination and informed decision-making. So students are the experts of their own lives and needs, and students must be included in all decisions and conversations about choices that impact their lives. And then the dignity of risk, give space for learning experiences, including natural consequences. So if you are considering a post-secondary program for your child, these are all really important. It is a 4-year living learning lab, or potentially a 2-year living learning lab, where it is an opportunity for, there's classes, which we'll talk about, that are, for us, we have classes that are specialized for TAP, which teach certain skills. And then there are UC electives that the students also take, which I'll explain more. And then there's the being out on campus, right? So if we're teaching a social skill, then you're going out and you're trying to join a group and you're talking to groups, and it might go well and it might not go well. And we can come back and kind of go back to the curriculum and apply what we've learned, and look through, well, what step did we skip and how can we do that differently? And so it is this really great place of where kind of episodic memory meets semantic memory and the learning happens. These are our 4 pillars: live, work, learn, and lead. So in our program, I'm going to go through this fairly quickly. Our students who live on campus, the freshmen and sophomores, live in a typical suite where there's 2 on each side with a shared bathroom in the middle. We have, our particular program has come to all of our freshmen live on the same floor in the dorm. But it's an inclusive floor. So there are only 49% of students on the floor. So it's not just a TAP floor. We've looked at different models. We work very closely with the RA staff at UC. We have a great relationship with them, but our freshmen, especially coming in, it's a big change. And so we have found that there's more support and more of an LLC feel of a community by being on the same floor versus scattered with different RAs. It's actually an easier transition in by having one really solid RA to help transition the students. Juniors and seniors move right next door. It's connected by a breezeway in apartment style housing. There's 2 bedrooms with 2 people in each bedroom. There's a full kitchen, a living room, a bathroom, closets. And so this is where we start teaching the daily living skills class. They start to learn to cook in a kitchen safely, practice cleaning out green stuff from the fridge, old food that needs to be thrown out. We start to live in that larger space. We might be cleaning our dorm room really good, but I was just at somebody's suite today, and I was just looking through the room and all the dishes piled up in the sink, which is somewhat typical, but also, we talk about, well, you 4 people living here, whose dishes are these, who's responsible for doing them, and kind of work through those life skills. We also really encourage our seniors to live off campus their senior year if the family and student feels that they're ready. The goal of our program is to allow our students to live independently after graduation, if that is possible. And so it's nice to be able to try that while you still have the support of the program. If you're going to do it after graduation, then it's kind of nice to phase into that, pull off the RA supports, but you still have our staff supports to try that. Our students all live in the same portion of campus. Different programs have a different philosophy on this. So only like 80 programs of the 300 and some that are out there, I believe, have housing. It might be a little bit more than that. I'm not up on the latest numbers, but it's a smaller percentage. Space is really hard to come by in programs like ours. So it's really kind of unique that you see, even though for other students, housing is not often guaranteed, they guarantee us beds for our program, which is great. Other programs who do have housing do inclusive living, maybe all throughout campus in different dorms. And so we kind of trialed that, right? Is that best practice to kind of live throughout campus totally inclusively? And so the dorm right next to the one that you see is right next to it, but you'd have to go out and badge yourself in. So you have to be a guest. You can't just walk in. And we trialed that 2 years ago with some of our students living there, and they absolutely hated it. So they didn't like having to go outside to put on shoes, to be invited over, just, have to use their badge to get in because they didn't have permission to. And what the feedback was, is they like to be inclusively in the dorm. So in their junior and senior year, they live on different floors, but they want to be in an area where they're accessible to each other. And they do hang out with students in our program and students outside of our program. So it's like the best of both worlds. I had something that I wanted to add on about their housing, but maybe it'll come back to me. So starting sophomore year in our program, students start with their internships. Sophomore year, we do on-campus internships. We currently have 15 on-campus internship location partners, and then 30 on-campus internships completed in the 23-24 school year. Most are unpaid sophomore year, but they can lead to employment after graduation. And then starting in junior year, senior year, we move to off-campus internships. There are 12 off-campus internship location partners currently. This is really individual for the student. So if a student comes in and they want to do a certain thing for a career, we go out and develop as much as we can, a partnership so that that student can get that experience. There are 16 off-campus internships completed in 23-24, and they can be paid or unpaid, but can also lead to paid employment after graduation. So students have vocational support. So we use vocational coaches on the job to help students become independent in their tasks as much as possible. And we fade those supports as is warranted. And we do travel training related to the job. So we work on taking the shuttle or the bus or an Uber once they start working off campus. Then there's specialized coursework. So to wrap around the internships, there's vocational focused TAP courses each semester. So there's a minimum of 8. There's career exploration, service learning, credit bearing internships. So they get their vocational classes, and then their internships also count for credit. There's electives are focused on soft skill development for employment. So we're going to look at the classes in a bit, but we choose electives that kind of build up the skills needed for their career interest area. They work on their resume, mock interviews, and they do career fairs. So then for learning, so we in our program, and this is when you're looking at programs, everybody takes a different approach to this. So in our program, we have specialized TAP classes as well as they take inclusive UC classes. Other programs might choose to do all fully inclusive classes. How we came to this is just it is our belief that sitting in a classroom doesn't mean that you are participating in the classroom or that you're belonging in the classroom, right? So we have access to be in whatever elective, but do we have the skills to really belong in that space? And just sitting there doesn't mean you're going to necessarily absorb what you need to be able to participate in that space. So like, for instance, I teach the healthy relationships class 3 years, freshman year, sophomore year, and junior year. They get it 3 same but different times from me. It's based off the Peers curriculum by Dr. Lageson, which is an evidence-based social skills curriculum. And we've adapted it to teach it as a college course. So we have a lecture day and we have a lab day. And the purpose of this is it kind of breaks down the rules of like comfortable social interaction. I'm not going to get into it too much, but it allows for, if you're sitting next to somebody in a class, how do you begin to trade information, which is the beginning of a conversation, right? We start to understand levels of relationships, the amount of touch, talk, and trust in that. And then, how do we move an acquaintance to a friend? And how do we have just conversations? And how do we kind of invite somebody to go kind of hang out with us? So we intentionally teach certain skills so that they can be successful when they're out on campus and doing their internships. But then there are other ones, are internships, our electives that are based on career interest areas, which I have a slide to show you in a second. We also have elective pathways. So this TAP student will identify their desired pathway the fall of their first year, and students will complete full educational plans of TAP courses in addition to one of the following. So students will either can go for a UC certificate. So they get a certificate with our program, and then they can get a UC certificate and/or an industry recognized credential if they would like. Some students just do the pre-apprenticeship in addition to our certificate, which is facilitated by CECH, which is our high school program. And this can lead to an inclusive UC apprenticeship. And then other students do like more of a generalist. So they enroll in a variety of UC courses chosen by TAP to increase soft skill development. And these courses can be taken for audit or credit. And when courses are taken for audit, it means that they sit down with our academic coordinator and they modify like what's due. They negotiate, okay, maybe we write 1 page of the 3-page paper, or we take this test and not that test. And there's no credit, so you couldn't earn a certificate from that, but still really good learning happens. Or they take it for credit, which means that they can use their accommodations, but they would have to complete all of the expected coursework. And I want to go back to in the pre-apprenticeship, there's computer science, engineering, and customer service currently. When we do the generalist, for instance, some of our students might take acting for non-majors because it works on communication skills, talking in front of people, preparing what you're going to say. So because we're in art school, like we have to be creative with some of our classes of finding the soft skills that could apply. Campus life. So TAP students, once you are admitted into our program, you have access to everything on the campus, the rec center, the clubs, and our students, that is their favorite part usually. I would like to say that they like to be there for the classes, but many of them love the social part like any college student. So there's all kinds of groups that the students can belong in. A big one is Rally Cats. So if you're ever watching a UC game and they've scanned the student section, the Rally Cats it's an organization that attends all home games of any kind of sport, and they're the biggest cheers, so they're always on TV. And we also host TAP activity nights. So when I started 9 years ago, there was a lot of coaching, and I would, ask students, how was your weekend? I was like, oh, I had an amazing weekend. We did this, we did that. It was so fun. And what I came to find out is it was hanging out with their coach, which is good, except for those students graduated and they did not learn the skills to plan their social time, their leisure time, and to engage socially with others, right? Because they kind of deferred to the coach. So they had a wonderful 4 years college, but they kind of didn't learn how to plan it for themselves, but that wasn't our goal. So we backed off on that. So we're really particular about our coaches are friendly, not friends. It's an important relationship. It's significant. It provides growth for the student, but their goal is to help all of us is to help that student develop the social skills and the vocational skills and the educational skills for them to have their best life with meaningful reciprocated relationships that are equal. And so we changed. But our freshmen aren't always there yet, right? If they want to go do something, they might struggle getting it into their calendar to remember to go. Or they don't have the confidence yet to ask somebody, or, they're not there. They're freshmen. We're 4 years. And so we have TAP activity nights, which I have volunteer coaches who once a week will host an activity at a set time, and they're there for the hour. So if a student can't plan and they show up 5 minutes, at the end of it, because they missed their time, somebody will still be there. I send out an invite to that, so it actually goes on their calendar if they accept it, so they don't have to worry about the planning piece. And we typically have like 10 to 20 students who go each week. So it's just a supplemental thing of something to do. But we highlight campus activities and really encourage them with our coaching. They'll work with coaches, which I'll get to in a second, but on planning, okay, so what are you going to go do this week? And let's look at what's going on campus. And hey, that sounds fun. There's a concert going on on Shakely Lawn. Let's make a plan to go to that with a friend. Like, who can you ask? So this is our program support. So there are lots of supports. We have lots of different coaching types. So we are not a 24/7 model. When you're looking for programs like ours, some students live with coaches and coaches walk them to and from programs. And those are amazing programs. And there are students who are going to college who need that level of support. Ours is a least restrictive type of model. So we have a lot of coaching touch points. They have TAP classes each day. So we have our eyes on the students and we know what's going on with them. We have a really good pulse point on them, but we don't check them in and out of the dorm at night, right? We're not walking with them to class. In my role, I'm over the life coaches and the independent living coaches. For life coaches, they have a cohort of students. They meet once a week for 30 minutes with each individual student to kind of go over are you joining your clubs? Are you hanging out with people? Are you eating? Are you taking care of yourself? Just the overall well-being. My independent living coaches are in the dorm working on, okay, we're struggling with laundry, or we're doing our laundry, but it's all kind of clean and stuffed in the back of our closets. We need to work on folding. So they're teaching skills and doing interventions when skills aren't working. We have our academic coaches. So in those classes that you saw before, we have an academic support class that was on there, and that is a class that is built in twice a week. It's not a tutoring class. It has an intervention specialist, our academic coordinator, and she is there with coaches, and the coaches are assigned like 2 students for the semester, and they help the students plan their work. So they look at all of the coursework that's due, and they help teach the student and work through planning, getting their college coursework done. And then we have the vocational coaches. And we have activity coaches. So we have all kinds of coaches in addition to all of the university resources. So we're in accessibility resources office. Our academic coordinator works with our students on working with accessibility resources, getting their accommodations. How do we advocate those from a college professor? It's different than in high school, right? You have to ask for them, you have to advocate for them. And so we teach that, and we use the Writing Center. So we use the university to teach accessing resources that are available, so that the student learns to do that on their own. We have, last year we had 33 paid coaches with an estimated 4,569 hours, with 17 volunteer coaches at 600 hours, and they come from all kinds of programs. We have a lot from OT, special education, speech therapy, physical therapy, but also business, IT. And what's great about our coaching program is, for like the OT, the PT, the speech, these are future professionals who are getting firsthand experience on communication. I mean, that's the biggest thing, is getting comfortable with, let's communicate and make sure we're at the same understanding, and getting a view into the life and the challenges and the things that go well of students in our program. And that's going to make them better professionals, because they're going to be far ahead of their peers, where I don't know how much experience people are getting. And hopefully it helps serve this population in the medical community better. I come from a medical community, and I can say that when I was working at the hospital, our students are underserved, right? We don't have enough comfortable trained professionals that are able to, in my opinion, fully treat individuals with IDD. And then our students who are not in programs, who are going to directly maybe work with our students, but like are in business, they're going to become natural supports. As we go out and have students who are looking to work at P&G or whatever business, our coaches are out there. They've been in, there might be IT, and the more we can give experience to coaches who are there, the more likely they're going to say, yes, I did TAP. I would love to be a natural support, here. Again, characteristics of a successful student in TAP, I would say that this probably is for any program: a motivation to learn and grow, a desire to learn and use program supports, to attend classes, coaching sessions, program check-ins, meetings, and study tables. So any program is going to expect that student to participate. Now, that's different than lack of planning to get there. We all work through that, right? But there are, the student has to want this, not the parent. Desire for meaningful, inclusive employment after graduation, so they have that same end goal. They have to have functional independence to care and advocate for oneself. They don't have to be perfect, right? But there was one of the questions you had on here, like, what if somebody gets lost on campus? We have students who, especially when they're new, they do get lost on campus, but they know who to call to help them. They don't hop on a bus and end up in Chicago. They pause and they either call me, or they reach out to their parents, or they use the emergency phone, or they ask a peer who's coming by. So it doesn't mean they know exactly where to go, but they have good resources that help them work through that. It can't be the first time that they're pondering, I'm hungry, I should eat, right? And so when you look at those, think college IEP goals, that's the stuff that programs like ours are looking for, right? Of, have we ever tried laundry before? Do we have any chores that we do at home that we're expected to complete on our own? So that when we're living away from home at college, it's not the first time all of this is expected of us, at a very high level. An ability to effectively communicate. It's not all just in words, right? I have some students who we can communicate, but sometimes I have them text out their stuff just because we need to get a better understanding of what's going, but they have a mode of doing it. Other students, sometimes we write down what we're talking about, just to make sure we're on the same page. A willingness to give their best effort, willingness to accept and use feedback, and a willingness to set and work on goals. Okay. This is just kind of the TAP difference. So when you're looking for programs, I think that you want to ask how they're teaching the thing. So TAP uses curriculums and intervention program models that are evidence-based practices. So for instance, the peers curriculum is an evidence-based curriculum, but we've also adapted it for what we're doing. And so we are also doing the research on, okay, does it work adapted like this? So I'm in the fourth year of a 7-year longitudinal study on the healthy relationships course. And is it doing what we think it's supposed to do? Is it creating social networks and connection and quality of life socially for our students? And excitedly, 4 years in, the research, the data is showing it is. So it's working. I teach the human sexuality course. I co-wrote the curriculum, and I'm involved in an international research group with a group of researchers out of Ireland. Half of them have an intellectual disability. They don't have a human sexuality curriculum there, and so they're now running the curriculum. And so we're doing research on that. So it's really important at any program that you look for is, how are they teaching social skills? Like, what makes it different? What is their method and why? And are they using practices that are evidence-based, or are they making sure that they're doing the research to make sure that they're evidence-based? And then our fees. So programs like these can be expensive, especially if you're doing the housing part. So for us, and in this upcoming year, it's $7,980 per semester. This covers all TAP courses and supports. We have a summer workshop. So one of the other ways to prepare for programs, like for our program, if a freshman's going to come to our program, is they're required to come for a week in the summer. And I'm here living on campus. My boss is here living on campus with coaches, and we practice all of the stuff when there's less people on campus. That's living, that's we practice living in the dorms, we practice going to the dining hall, we practice navigating using Apple Maps, Google Maps, all of it, so that when we come for Welcome Week in the fall, we've already worked out some of that. We work on all the technology, get all the technology set up, figure out how we store passwords. So that's what's done in the summer workshop. UC elective courses, rates are varied based on residency status and the number of credit hours, and you can see that on the UC website. So we have our TAP program fee, and any elective, they typically take one per semester. There is the elective fee for that. And then the housing and meal plans for Marion Spencer, it's $7,484 per semester. In Scioto, it's $8,089. Freshman year, you're required to have a full meal plan for any UC student, but after that, you can kind of change your meal plans, and those rates change each year. So this was the for the 2024-25 school year. And so we are a comprehensive transition program. So we're federally approved to offer financial aid, but you need to submit a FAFSA. But it's not full financial aid packages that college students get. So we get the Pell, I believe. I don't usually present on this slide. So the Pell is what is typically approved. So there's also vocational rehab or OOD, depending on what it's called in your area. This support varies state by state. In Ohio, they are not currently really paying for programs like ours, but everybody keeps working to advocate for change on that. But in other states, and I think it can even go by city, OOD does pay for services like ours. So I know some of our students get some of their costs covered by OOD. There's private scholarships, so you can search on Google. Examples are Ruby's Rainbow and Adults with Autism. There's also resources on Think College for other ways, for other scholarships, as well as ways to pay for programs. And then, this is our current timeline. So July 1st, the application, you could preview it. Open houses happen August through November. There'll be some in the spring again, but this is the big time for open houses for programs like ours. The application opened on September 2nd. Early application is October 25th. That's the deadline. And in late December, we'll do on-campus interviews in November and early December. So October 25th, the application's due. Then you'd have to come in for an interview if you're selected, and you would have late December, you would know if you were admitted or not for early action. The benefit of early action is last year, we take 10 to 13 students each cohort. Half of that was filled by early application. Programs like ours are getting more and more competitive. So the more you can, the earlier you do that, it helps you secure a spot. So if you're interested in it, think about early action for any school that you're at. February 14th, regular decision applications are due, and then regular decision notices are late March 2025. And that is it for mine.
There was one question out there, Kerri. They wanted to ask about the RAs, the residential advisors. What kind of training do they go through to work with the students in this
So,
program?
yeah, so UC is big on inclusivity. So UC does, I think all programs do it, but I know UC's RA training process is quite extensive. I think it's 2 weeks long before school starts. They have all day programming. So UC itself has very highly trained RAs on conflict resolution and everything for the general student. I go in and present to the general RAs on regulation that they apply across the university because they saw a lot of benefit in understanding regulation, strategies for calming. And then I do a presentation and train RAs in general who would be in the buildings that our students are at on best practices, on conflict resolution, on how to help a student identify that they might need to use a calming strategy. We talk about that a lot because usually an RA is involved because people are, stressed or, heightened emotions. And then I work directly with the RAs and the RA staff for this RAs directly on our floors. So with that, we have a very close relationship with the community coordinators at the dorm. We meet once a week, and they manage the RAs. We used to kind of own the RAs on our floors, and it wasn't an inclusive model. So the training, we kind of provide the training, and we kind of have we do a general one, on best practices, and then we're always available to work through what does this look like. So the way we use RAs is we don't want special rules, right? If somebody is violating the noise policy, this happened, and the standard rule is, okay, we'll give 3 warnings, but after the 3rd warning, you're going to get written up. If that's how it is for any other student, then we would like that same thing for our students, because we believe in natural consequences. I teach really well in natural consequences, right? But where we work is if the student is written up, and usually before the write-up happens, we know that this is happening because we meet weekly with the dorm staff, then what happens is they're like, okay, this person's really struggling. They'll let us know with volume. They've been written up. We've addressed this with them. Then I work with them or one of our staff with our life coaches and independent living coaches on, well, what do we need to do to teach this differently? Or intervention? Or do we need like a sign on the wall? Or do we need, like, what do we need to do to help this student be successful to achieve this like social norm? Other than that, UC really wants to own training and owning this. So it's not, I mean, I do a lot of trainings on the across the university to train the other professionals so they can train their staff, right? Because this is newer, but UC wants to do that top down. Like they're really bought in for that. Any other questions?
Nothing's yet posted in the chat box. Thank
Okay.
you.
Yeah, Tristan, I will just jump off, Tristan, so you can go.
And while Tristan's pulling hers up, if you think of another question for, you know, either one, Kerri or Tristan as we go, just go ahead and put in the chat box and we'll be sure to answer them all either throughout or at the end of the session.
All right, I know mine's a little funky. Can you all see it? I can't see you.
Yes, we can see it.
Well, thank you so much, Kerri, for all of that information. It is super helpful, and UC has an incredible program. So based on what Kerri said, I might skip through some of our slides a little faster just to not duplicate information, and to make sure that we have lots of time at the end for our questions. So my name is Tristan Chaput, and I am the program coordinator and faculty for the Tartan Tops program at Sinclair Community College, which is located in Dayton, Ohio. So Sinclair's motto is finding the need and endeavor to meet it. And so when it comes to students with intellectual and developmental disabilities, we wanted to help create a pathway to higher education. At Sinclair in general, 1 in 5 students have a disability. Now that is not specifically IDD, but in general, we're serving a lot of students with disabilities. What we were finding was that students with intellectual disabilities were falling through the cracks. They were having a hard time navigating college, the supports, and its resources. But we also found that, like their non disabled peers, students with disabilities wanted to attend college. They're interested in attending. They want to gain skills for the workplace. They want to further their education. They want to grow personally and professionally. They want to be more independent. And so we knew that a program like this was needed. Because comprehensive transition programs develop opportunities for furthering education, employment, independence, and more. And so that's kind of how we were created. And this started all the way back in 2019. We applied for grant funding through the Ohio Statewide Consortium, and we were awarded that. So we started developing our curriculum and our pathways. We were granted our comprehensive transition program status, which is designated from the U.S. Department of Higher Education. And then COVID happened. And like so many things, we hit the pause button because we were dealing with something unprecedented. But it got to the point where we knew that we had to start this program. So we actually started the program in January 2021, virtually with 4 students. Our second cohort came in August of 2021. And at that point, we were back on campus. 2022, we started with our third cohort of 20 students. And we actually were joined by our first out-of-state student who came from Pennsylvania to be part of our program. And during that time, we transitioned our program from accessibility services in the student development part of the college to the academic side. And so we are actually housed in the education department because we wanted to provide it with an academic home. We also were awarded the Aaron Ritchie Educator Award from our Montgomery County Board of Developmental Disabilities, which has to do with creating a better life for people in our community with disabilities. This past year, we had 18 graduates and we welcomed 17 new students, including our first international student. And we won the League of Innovation of the Year Award. And then this year, we welcomed 21 new students and we are on track for 14 more to graduate in December. So in total, we've had 25 complete the program. So what is it? TOP stands for Transition Option in Post-Secondary Education. We are a part-time certificate program for students with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Part-time meaning 2 days a week. And we are looking at about 2 classes per semester, or 6 to 8 credit hours, depending on what classes you're taking. I tell students all the time, for those who are looking to gain further education and they're really using this as a transition from high school to college, that most people can convince me to add a 3rd class per semester if needed. But beyond that, we really want to make sure that they're feeling comfortable and confident on campus. And we feel that 4 or more classes tends to be overwhelming for our students. Students who complete the pathway earn a comprehensive transition program certificate, but what we're finding is many of our students are actually earning additional credentials during their time in the program and beyond. Our students take inclusive classes for credit. So all of our classes are completely inclusive and all of our classes are for credit. And our program provides wraparound supports, which I'll discuss in a little bit. So at Tartan Tops, we really believe in focusing on our students' strengths. You'll hear us say a lot that all of us are given gifts, but not everybody has a chance to unwrap them. So we're trying to figure out our students' true potential. We're trying to figure out what they're really good at, what they're passionate about, and how we can pair their passions and their skills for their future. So we are not a one size fits all program. We develop different paths based on student interests. So some of the things that our students are interested are history, respiratory therapy, education, hospitality, theater, criminal justice, many different interests. We do not have program fees, so many comprehensive transition programs throughout the country have fees for participation. Our students only pay tuition and the typical college fees. We waive placement tests for the program participants. So typically Sinclair students are required to do a math placement and a writing placement. That is not the case for students who are in our program. And we are members of the Ohio Statewide Consortium. So there are 10 programs like ours in the state of Ohio. We are also part of GLIPSE, the Great Lakes Inclusive Postsecondary Education Alliance, because we're trying to figure out best practices. We're trying to learn from our peers across the state and across our region. So our curriculum, this is an example pathway because as I mentioned, students are really in the driver's seat. We're trying to figure out, again, what their goals are, what their strengths are, and how we can set them on that path for the future. So in the first semester, which starts every fall, we do Life Skills 1. And when we're talking about Life Skills 1, or life skills, we're really focusing on how do I navigate the college experience? How do I request academic accommodations? How do I navigate campus? Our students all take classes at the Dayton campus in downtown Dayton. That's 20 buildings. How do I navigate campus? How do I access the student food pantry if I am experiencing food insecurity? How do I research? So let me talk to the librarians and figure that out. How do I be part of clubs and organizations? Because going to college is so much more than just going to class. It's being part of a community. It's finding your people. So how can I engage with my peers both in Tartan Tops and across campus? The interpersonal communications class is taught by communications faculty. They're the content experts, and so they develop that curriculum and they teach those courses. What we do is we reserve 5 seats in those classes for Tartan Top students, and the rest of those seats are filled by students from across Sinclair. So again, our focus is really inclusion. And we offer supports to those faculty members who are teaching the classes to make sure that they feel comfortable and confident. And we offer that class on a pass-fail scale. So to be clear, it's still offered for credit, but what we're doing is pass-fail rather than a letter grade. And to pass the class, we're looking for a 60% or better. In the second semester, we do life skills 2, where we're really answering the questions, what do I want to be when I grow up? And what do I need to do to get there? So we're talking about hobbies versus careers. We're talking about budgeting, making sure that we're funding our dreams. So a lot of students have goals of being influencers or artists and things of that nature, which is amazing. But how are we funding that dream? We also talk about budgeting, again, hobbies versus careers and things of that nature in that class. The elective is a class that best fits their pathway forward. So we've had students in early childhood education, criminal justice, history, art, theater, science classes, medical coding, things of that nature. And then our last 2 semesters are work skills and internships. So in work skills, we're really focusing on those soft skills, those skills that everybody needs to be successful in the workplace. We talk about things like leadership, team building, time management. What can I talk to my colleagues about? What shouldn't I talk to my colleagues about? How do I give feedback? How do I accept feedback? How do I request accommodations in the workplace? Internships are those practice jobs. And so whenever possible, we try to start a student on campus, but we also open up opportunities in the community. So some partners that we've had on campus include accessibility services, the campus police department, the student food pantry, the physical activities center. We do have an early child care center on campus called Mini University, and we've had students in the classroom and in the kitchen. And outside in our community, we've had partnerships with the Dayton Dragons, a doggy daycare in Vandalia, Michael's Salon. We have a student at the University of Dayton right now, Casano's Pizza, so all over the place. And our goal with internship is whenever we can find an opportunity for a student within their industry of choice, we want to provide that experience. However, we know that that's not always possible. So, for example, I had a student who really wanted to be a voiceover actress. That was her goal. There's not necessarily a lot of opportunity in the Dayton region for voiceover acting. And so we spoke with industry experts and said, what experiences would benefit her? And they suggested the theater. So we found an internship for her working in the theater behind the scenes. And then she kind of figured out a path forward from there. And she's actually been in Sinclair theater performances since graduating. We also look at, have you had job experiences before? So do you just need some sort of job experience, a resume builder? Do you need professional references? Could this internship be an experience where you can gain professional references? So we really work with each student individually to make sure that we're addressing their unique needs. So some of the educational pathways that we have, I mentioned the communication department offering interpersonal communication on a pass-fail scale. We also have a partnership with the hospitality department to offer HMT 1105, which is Introduction to Hospitality Management. And that we had asked them to do it on a pass fail scale. And what we actually ended up happening was if students get a 70% or better in that class, they get a short term technical certificate in hospitality. So we said, well, let's do that instead. And we've had, I think, 8 students complete that. So earning the HMT short term certificate and the CTP certificate at the same time. We have a partnership with Business Information Systems, which is a introduction to software applications class on a pass-fail scale. And we're always looking to develop additional pathways. But students are not stuck in these 3 pathways. Again, they can choose their own adventure, so to speak, and find an opportunity that best fits them. So we get this question a lot. Wait, are the classes hard if they're for college credit? Well, sometimes. Our courses can be challenging. The interpersonal communication class has 3 papers that students have to write, weekly quizzes, discussion posts. It can be tough, but we also know that our students are capable of achieving great things in all of their classes and that we have appropriate supports. We have a transition success specialist who helps students in navigating campus and preparing for tutoring sessions, classes, and things like that. Our students receive appropriate academic accommodations from accessibility services. Counseling services can help students with time management skills, help students who are experiencing stress or feeling overwhelmed in creating a plan. We have a dedicated tutor, we have peer mentors, we have a neurodiverse support group. So while yes, students have homework and assignments that maybe they didn't have in high school, again, we can't modify curriculum, but we know that they are capable. And so we have found that students who use their resources, who spend time on campus, because we are not a residential campus, we are a community college, and who do their homework, who do their readings, they are more likely to be successful. So some of the successes, actually 12 out of our 17 graduates from 2023 have stayed at Sinclair to further their education. And this slide really just shows you the diversity of their interests. So, video production, journalism, supply chains, early childhood education, deaf studies, electromechanical engineering. We have students in a multitude of disciplines. We even have students who are now at UC. So we did have our very first student transition he graduated from Tartan Tops, and now he's going through the TAP program. He didn't feel ready quite yet to do the TAP program first, but he got some experiences with Sinclair, and now he wants to focus on his independent living skills. So some of the supports, as I mentioned, accessibility services provides the academic accommodations, counseling, transition support, and a neurodiverse support group. The neurodiverse support group is not limited to Tartan Top students. That is open to any neurodiverse student at our college. Our transition success specialist provides holistic support. So really focusing on not just the student and their academic life, but their student holistically. So where they want to live. I had a student from Pennsylvania. Does he want to move back to Pennsylvania, or does he want to stay in Ohio? Does he want to live somewhere else? Do you want to live with your family? Do you want to live independently with a roommate, with a romantic partner? What will your future family look like? Where do you want to work? Do you have other goals outside of your academics that you would like to work on? Many of our students are interested in driving. And so that's something that we talk to a lot of our students about. Many of our students are interested in romantic relationships. So we have those conversations with our students. Again, we help with campus navigation, tutoring preparations, and we refer students to on and off campus resources. We have a dedicated tutor in the Tutoring and Learning Center who is trained to better support our students and to provide students with a consistent support. So they're always going to the same tutor for 1 hour every week. And our students have access to everything that Sinclair has to offer. Our students are Sinclair students, not just Tartan Top students. So they can participate in clubs and organizations. They can study abroad. They can participate in theater, music, all of the offerings that any other student would have. It's a completely inclusive environment. So some of our features, we have peer mentoring, and our peer mentors support students in their wellness goals, academic goals, and others. We have a Lunch with a Leader program. So we have leadership from across campus who are interested in taking our students out to lunch one-on-one. So we have campus police officers who have taken our students to lunch. The director of student affairs has taken our students to lunch. Our associate provost has taken our students to coffee. We have a list of over 20 leaders at Sinclair who are interested in supporting our students in this capacity. As I said, we don't have dorms, but we do have a Tartan Tops Lounge, which is our home base on campus. It has a sensory room, it has a computer lab, and lots of opportunities and spaces for our students to socially interact or get support from our transition support specialist. We have a variety of opportunities to train our students on assistive technology. I've spoken briefly about the internship experiences, but if anybody has any specific questions, I'd be happy to answer them. And we have connections to local, state, and national resources. So we have great partners in Montgomery County, Board of DD, Greene County, Butler County, Warren County. We have opportunities for Ohioans with disabilities. We actually have a dedicated Tartan Tops case manager. We have our local transportation, great partnerships there. So we can always offer referrals as needed. Campus Campus life, as I said, college is a lot more than just going to class. It's about being part of a community. And so our students participate in clubs and organizations. I mentioned we have students applying to go to Japan next year with study abroad. Our students participate in Welcome Week, Harvest Fest, art, theater, Sinclair talks, Spring Fling, book clubs, and let me tell you, our favorite event is puppies on campus. So you see some of our students snuggling with those 4 paws for ability puppies. We had a therapy dog in our lounge a couple weeks ago. We are big dog lovers in Tartan Tops, and so that always happens to be where our students are. So tuition and financial aid. For Montgomery County students, Montgomery County people pay a tax levy for Sinclair, so their tuition and fees are cheaper. I believe it's $143 per credit hour this year. But I gave kind of the higher number for folks just so they have a better idea. So our students only pay tuition and fees. It's typically for 2 classes, 2 days a week, around 7 credit hours per semester, which would be about $1,352.96 per semester. Our program goes for 4 semesters, so we are very proud to be very affordable. For those who need it, we do. We also have government status where students can apply for federal financial aid through the FAFSA, and if a student is found Pell Grant eligible, then our program is covered. We also have scholarships and grant opportunities. Sinclair has disability specific scholarships, as well as the Ruby's Rainbow Scholarship. We've had students receive that. We've had students receive Centerville Civic Club scholarships, tech prep scholarships through career centers, and many more. Outside of these payment options, the option would be self pay. So a payment plan or paying out of pocket upfront. Essentially, when it comes to comprehensive transition programs, you cannot take out loans to pay for these programs. A 529, you would be able to pay for this program as well. Some things to consider, books and other supplies. For many of the Tartan Tops required classes, we do not have textbooks because our goal is affordability and accessibility. Transportation, some students receive support through DD, through OOD, but some do have to navigate transportation on their own. So bus passes or Uber, gas, things like that, and labs depending on the classes that they're taking. But again, they don't pay anything beyond these fees listed. Our application process, we are currently accepting 18 spots for fall 2025, so starting in August of next year. And the process is that you would apply online through the Sinclair Tartan Tops website. There is an application there that is different from the Sinclair College application, so we have a program specific one. You would also complete the skills assessment, send in an IEP, an ETR, 504, any documentation from high school, and then you would be invited on campus for an interview where you would meet the team. It's really a conversation. We want to understand what supports you need, and how we can help you be successful if you were to come to Sinclair. From there, you would receive a decision. We do run a wait list. So last year we had 8 people on our wait list, and people who are on the wait list have first access to spots the following year. So we were able to call up 2 people from our wait list this year. And so next year, any remaining people on our wait list have the first spots for the fall 2025 cohort. So that's why we have that strange 18 number. Typically, we accept 20 students per cohort. Again, I want to also plug Think College because it is an amazing resource. Figuring out, which college is right for you is a very personal decision. Every college has pros and cons. This on the left-hand side, as you see the map of the United States, you can see how many programs are across our country. So as I mentioned, we're one of 10 in the state of Ohio, but there are many all over, and all of these programs are supporting students with intellectual and developmental disabilities. On the right, also some of the resources that Kerri had mentioned, how to prepare, is college possible, getting started. So those IEP goals, the tips for IEP teams. So if you're somebody who is not a parent but is helping with IEP meetings, these are some great resources. They also have funding opportunities, things like that. They have professional development if you are a professional in the field. Really wonderful resource that I highly recommend. So I know that you've heard a lot from both of us tonight, but just to quickly recap on Tartan Tops, we are a part-time pathway for students with disabilities that helps students access education and work skills needed for careers. We really want to discover how student skills can lead to a job. We are strengths based. We connect students with campus events through class, clubs, and organizations. We are 100% inclusive. We really believe in our students. We know what our students are capable of, and we will champion them because we want to see them succeed. We have a Facebook page. We have our Sinclair website, our Tartan Tops website. So if you want to check us out and see what else is going on with the program, I certainly invite you to check that out. And then my name is Tristan. Again, I'm the faculty and program coordinator. So if you have any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them. I am quickest over email. We are a mighty team of two typically. It's myself and our transition support specialists are our boots on the ground folks. And so neither of us tend to be at our desks a lot. So email is the fastest, but I'm always happy to set up a call, set up a time for you to come. Our open house was yesterday, but I'm always happy to do one-on-one tours. Or you can always come to Sinclair in general and get a general tour of the entire college as well. So I will stop sharing and open up the floor for questions.
Thank you, Tristan. I don't see any questions in the chat box just yet, but you guys covered a lot of information. That was wonderful how you, and it was just so interesting for me. I never thought about an individual starting at Sinclair and then transferring then down to UC. I didn't even think of that option. So that is a pretty cool to know that that is a possibility as well. One question I do have is we went through a lot of preparing for post-secondary in the month of September and leading up to this session. Um, kids that the individuals or the students that do Project Life for Project Search, do you see with the students that come to you, and this is for either one of you, do you find that students are coming out of Project Life and Project Search and going into your programs, or a lot of them students that did not go through that process, graduated, took their diploma, and went then directly into college, or is there a certain balance there?
For me, do you want me to go first, Tristan? Yeah, I would say I've seen that start to change. So I think that the more post-secondary programs are known and we can work them into IEPs, and our secondary programs and our elementary programs know that this is a goal that people can work toward. I think more people graduate and come straight to us. I would say we were 50-50, and probably now like a quarter of ours are coming from Project Search.
I would say we're right around 50-50. I do see a higher level of preparedness for those who are coming through Project Search, Centerville ITOPS, equivalent programs, just because of the additional skill building. I actually, if a family is uncertain of the next path, if they're going, okay, maybe ITOPS, maybe Project Search, or maybe Tartan Tops, I usually say do the longer program, because once you accept that high school diploma, you can't go back. But you have to accept a high school diploma to participate in Tartan Tops. You cannot be dually enrolled. And so taking full advantage of what K-12 has to offer is typically what I recommend for those who are uncertain. But we see a healthy mix.
Great, that's good to know. And then Tristan, you mentioned, you mentioned you have an OOD coordinator that works at your school. Kerri, do you guys have OOD also working?
Yeah, so we have our own designated OOD coordinator that works with our vocational coordinator throughout their 4 years here, which is nice.
Okay.
In fact, we got that like 3 years ago, maybe 2 or 3 years ago. We got our designated one, and it was a great change.
Okay, so and do these coordinators, they specifically work when your child gets to that college stage, or are they ones that could come into an IEP at the end of their high school days. You know, sometimes OOD will sit in on an IEP at the IEP meetings. Are these individuals more or less assigned with the college, or would they be ones that would sit in on an IEP previously?
Tristan, I might defer to you to this because our vocational coordinator handles it the most. I'm fairly certain it's a college thing. So ours, I don't think ours currently does anything right now. My program not at all goes to high school, including our OOD. Tristan, though you might know better.
Ours is college specific. If
Mhm.
you are working with OOD early on, like while your student is still in high school, maybe doing pre-ETs or something like that, the pre-employment, I would recommend they come to the IEP meeting. I would recommend you're talking to them about post-secondary. I have had students where OOD provides financial assistance. It's not very often, but I've had OOD purchase laptops for students, help with tuition. It is something that we're advocating for more of our students. But if you can have your entire team with you, that's typically what I recommend. But our OOD case manager coordinator does not happen until the college level.
All good to know. Yeah, I was wondering how they worked with all that. We did have OOD speak in September, but they were like preparing you for the post, you know, for the graduation part. And then when you said about the coordinator, I wasn't sure how those two overlapped or how they came together. All good information.
If you have OOD, I would recommend talking to them earlier and not waiting until you get to college because they can help you, at least for the post secondary part. They may be able to help with transportation. They may be able to help with assistive technology or things of that nature. So, keeping that case open is always recommended from me. And then, if we need to transition you to a different person, we can. But it's easier to keep the case open than close it and have to start over with that intake process.
I want to add on to that. I think, and I meant to say this before, Tristan, you would probably agree. I think that a key point that needs to start happening in the IEP meetings and secondary programs, right? We're kind of trickling this down is like it's not too early. Like the earlier we can start thinking of this, the better the student is prepared. Like kind of rethinking what are our IEP goals and what do I need to be working on. I just met with two freshman students at my own kids' high school this past week, and it was like, okay, so you can lock down their phone, but you should probably have a phone. We want to have as much repetition on practicing on the Outlook calendar or the Google calendar or practicing on our own alarms, right? Like it's so let's fail safely at home, but practice this stuff. And a lot of it's getting better, but as we get more and more into this, it's getting better. But a lot of people are waiting till senior year. And so you've lost this time of doing these little things at home that are really good for independence and being able to go to classes and plan time to do the work. It all builds up. So the earlier you can start, if you have an eighth grader, a seventh grader, this is like a perfect time to be listening to this because there's so much you can do to get your student ready for that senior year and the application process.
Yeah, Andrea's saying start looking ahead at 14. I actually at our open house yesterday, I had a mom with a 10-year-old. And I know I have a niece, and I'm telling her mom, she's 10 years old. Let's get this started. Start pulling those IEP goals. Let's start working on some of these soft skills that are going to help her be successful. Don't shut the door because somebody told you, oh, that's not possible. That's I think so often, and I'm a parent. Of a child on an IEP. So often I hear the he can't, he won't, he could never, and let's stop. Let's stop with that. We have to reach for possibilities, and so starting at 10, 12, 14.
Mhm.
And if you're on here and you're like, I have a 19-year-old, what about me? That's totally okay. Even if you have a 22-year-old,
Yep.
that's okay. We're glad you found us. I have students who are 33, 34. We're glad you're here. But if you are a parent of a younger person, if you are a teacher to, sixth, seventh, eighth grade, and also bring them to campus. Let's start getting people to think that college is a possibility. Bring them to campus for tours, even if it's not with us. Get them on the campus experiencing things so they can start realizing this is for me too.
Very good. Well said. That was a lot of good information going on there. Because I agree totally. We've had people attend SALT that they started coming when the trial was 8, just to be able to start working on that. And believe me, when they start hitting 14, that 14 to graduation goes so fast, and you have so much to prepare. And I'm always one to advocate, get started at, 14. And like you said, if you are 18, 19, 20 or older, you can still reach out to people. It's just as you're preparing for those who have younger individuals, it's great to prepare ahead of time. It's taking it in those earlier times. Me being a parent, I know we didn't realize everything that was available. We were in that same of the, he can't, he won't, that kind of thing. Um, so we didn't get started till, it was like senior year. And boy, I tell you that I said that was one tough year with all the eligibilities, all the processes, learning about the organizations and going just through everything. Where if you start a little sooner, you have that time to work through it, learn it, and absorb it a little bit better than trying to cram it all at the, right at 18,
Mhm.
20, whatever.
And I'd also like to say, in just meeting with this personal family the other day, it's my own school district, and it was, well, he's not going to go to college. I was like, whoa, pause on that, right? And so, unfortunately, families, you're going to have to be the advocate. It is teaching the professionals what this means. What does college mean now? It's different. What does a post-secondary college mean? And so they don't understand it. I really think that a lot of the professionals out there think college is, college of 1992 when we were there. I mean, it's not that. They don't understand what it is that we do and how it can apply. And so they're just like, they're still writing it off, which is concerning. It's getting less. But that is then to go to think college, like I empowered them. I was giving them the language and them the vision so that they could then pass along what this is so they could get everybody on board.
Exactly. I mean, there's been a lot of changes, as you mentioned. I've seen even a huge amount of changes of leaps and bounds, even from 2010 when my son was at that point of graduation. Just so many changes, and it's great to see how many programs and how far things have come, even in that time frame. Um, there is a question there. When are the next open houses? Is this for either one, Heather? I guess you can both talk about which are your open houses, the next one.
Look mine up. I don't have it readily available. We have one more left in the fall season. Let me look that up. Tristan, you know yours off the top of your head. I don't.
So Sinclair, so we only had one this fall. Sinclair in general has fall affair on Saturday, this Saturday, October 19th. And we will have information at the accessibility services table. But we will also have, it's called Spring Affair. Always happens on President's Day. It's a Sinclair wide event, and we will have a table at that event as well. But again, I'm always happy to meet one-on-one. Sometimes that's better so we can, really be mindful of your unique student. And so if you want to set up a time, I have a lot of availability on Mondays, just because I teach Tuesdays and Thursdays. So I'm happy to, if you don't want to wait until February, let's come up earlier.
And we've switched. So we were always doing a lot of one-on-ones. Ours, we are part of the university open house. And so our next one is on November 1st. And so we had, 4 this fall. There'll be, I know there was like 2 in the summer and then they start again in the spring. And so there's one on November 1st. You can always find it on UC TAP, UC TAP, or you could always email TAP apply now at uc.edu. And also we have UC _IDD Ed Center on Instagram. I don't have that on there. I'll type it in the chat. They post stuff all the time. We have a new marketing person and they're doing a good job of pushing out all of the dates that kind of, so you know that stuff's coming up.
Great, wonderful. And it's always helpful to go to the open houses, and then you get to meet, and talk. You have discussions. You can collect information. One-on-one is great too. I like how that's an option as well. Is there any other questions for our speakers before we wind things down? Um, I will stop the recording in case somebody prefers to unmute and ask a question and don't want to ask while we're recording. So I always try to, allow a little bit of time for these open discussions as well. But before I close the recording, I want to thank Tristan and Kerri, both of you, for representing your schools and coming out and speaking. Great information, very, very, very helpful. So 1 second while I close the recording, and thank you again. 1 second.